Today we're joined by Everett Lippel, host of one of the top podcasts in the trades and a well-respected voice in the industry. Everett, thanks for being on the Dispatch.
This is my 17th year actually in the business. When I first got into the industry, I had a manager who beat the shit out of me. Everybody sells something. It doesn't matter what it is, right? I'm very passionate about the trades. I'm very passionate about what I do. That's actually why I started this podcast.
You started this thing for the right reasons.
I had no idea that it would be as big as it is. And now I have tens and tens of thousands of downloads and listens. And you don't focus on the end game. You focus on the process. Every single play matters.
Hey guys, welcome to the Dispatch, where job site legends get the mic. Join me every other Thursday as I sit down with the biggest names in the trades to find out what's really happening to keep America running. So whether you're on the road or in the garage, beer in hand, settle in for a great conversation. I'm Ryan Prosser, and this is the Dispatch. Welcome back to the Dispatch, where job site legends get the mic. Today we're joined by Everett Lippel, a 17-year veteran of the HVAC and home services industry, host of one of the top podcasts in the trades, So I Was in This House, and a well-respected voice in the industry. Everett, thanks for being on the Dispatch.
Thank you for having me.
Cool, man. So you are a pretty big voice in this in the trades, man. For folks that maybe are hearing you for the first time, give us a little bit more on your background.
Yeah, so I accidentally stepped into this industry like a lot of other people this is my 17th year actually in the business, and I'm a lifer now. So yeah, I kind of worked backwards through the trade. I got hired to actually do sales for a company, and then it went, HVAC sales. And so they had this crazy training program. So they trained us the HVAC side backwards. And then, I've since gotten my master license since then. I've taken every class from here to Timbuktu on both the technical side, on the, the business side of things. I've operated companies. I've owned a company. So it's been a really busy 17 years. So it's been pretty neat. Worked with some large companies, small companies, done a lot of consulting work. And, I'm really proud. I'm a very ethical guy when it comes to, HVAC sales. I got, plaques on the walls of, contests I've won and,
nice.
It's pretty cool. So, yeah.
So, 17 years. And like you said, you've kind of, and you got a career that stretches even before that. Like you've been all over this industry, all kinds of different corners of it too. What were some of the signals that this was for you? And then even within the trades, like as you were zeroing in on the place that you really loved and kind of spoke to you, so to speak, like what were some of the signals that, I don't know, caused you to zero in on the right parts of this for you?
So I'm kind of an incessant human being where in every aspect of it, I'm just incessant, pretty, persistent, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so I'll tell you, really sitting behind a desk, doing, menial sort of stuff, really never spoke to me. I really like to interact with people, interact with tradespeople. I love teaching. I like getting in front of a whiteboard. I like showing people things. And so the trades really opened it from the very beginning when I first started in the trades, actually. Running calls for me, even though the hours were ungodly, right? I was all over the place. I loved it. And I loved being on the road, and I loved being in other people's houses. And for me, I got the chance to, I get the chance to be inside of someone else's life for a couple hours, right? And that relationship might go way further than that. But for the most part, right, it starts out with that first, hour or two, and then it can grow from there. But the point is I love to learn about people. I have a brain that really doesn't shut off, so I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly reading. I'm constantly listening, and for me, it was the perfect storm of being able to do something technical, right? Where I'm designing, whether it's, I'm figuring out, the proper CFM load for a room, or I was trying to figure out, like doing load calculations and figuring out like what size unit, you know, might need to go in a space. Or I was trying to figure out like, how do I solve this person's problem? Like they're saying that, you know, they can't quite cool or heat this part of the house or this part of the building or whatever it is, you know, or coming up with ideas. Hey, I'm putting on an extension in my house. How would you heat or cool this? What would you do? And then designing ideas that were like, solutions to these problems. And it sounds so cliche, but like that always sort of, I just love figuring out the puzzle, figuring out, putting the pieces together and going like, hey, I can marry like this great solution to this person, and I can really make this happen. So it's kind of the perfect storm. I got to like learn people, learn their habits, and actually part of my training that I do service and sales training, and part of that has one of the steps is actually learning their habits, learning what makes them tick, what are their motivations, and so forth. And I think that we're just trying to push our own agenda. And so when you learn somebody else's habits and somebody else's motivations behind what they do and why they do it, you can get to a solution that makes more sense. And if you can get to that solution together, you can be really successful, especially because I don't care what you do. I don't care if you're in there doing repairs. I don't care if you're doing sales. I don't care what you're doing. Everybody sells something. It doesn't matter what it is, right? So if you're a service technician and you are trying to communicate with somebody, guess what? Like, you get paid an hourly rate to go out there, and that is a transaction. And if that transaction doesn't happen, that company doesn't exist. You don't exist. You don't have a job. So the better you are communicating, the better you will be at your job. And the better you'll be at your job, the more work you can secure for you and your family and your rest of your business. And guess what? That's a good thing. Everybody gets to work. So long answer to a short question, but I've found that there's all these check boxes within the trades, and even up through operations. And I've operated businesses, and so even checking the boxes in an operation, going all the way through like a P&L, like understanding that it's mechanical. There are functions within the business that require thought and require strategy, and so there's this constant, I always get the itch scratched. So, and I love winning. And I love when so it's like, on the one hand, you're figuring things out. On the other hand, you're securing business for your company. So the whole thing is very, it's a win for me. And so I'm very passionate about the trades. I'm very passionate about what I do. That's actually why I started this podcast. I had no idea that it would be as big as it is. And now I have tens and tens of thousands of downloads and listens. And it's about the intentionality that I have in doing this.
You started this thing for the right reasons. You didn't really seem to be seeking out a big voice, just interested in talking about what you're interested in talking about. What's your sense for, like, as you connect with the audience? I mean, we're constantly taking audience questions, but every show's got a little different audience. And I'm curious, like, when you talk with the people that are kind of the most rabid followers of your show, like, what are they interested in hearing about? What do you get from them a lot? Like, what can you tell me about the audience over on your side?
So some of my podcasts are storytelling, and some of my podcasts are education. And I had somebody tell me that my podcast is entercation, that it's that it goes, it sort of lives in both worlds. So I'm able to have educational episodes. I've done episodes on IAQ. I've done episodes on HVAC sales. I've done straight HVAC episodes, and I've also done where we just tell stories. So like sometimes my audience will actually come from like the technician side of things, and a lot of it actually comes from the operator or the ownership side of things. And I've had a lot of good solid operators on, or at least people that are in the operation of the business, and they were in the field, but now they're actually out and they operate business. I've had a bunch of business owners on. So the span depends on the actual episode.
We did an episode a few weeks ago on like the anatomy of a sale, like how to buy an HVAC business, how to sell an HVAC business. And it was a very niche episode. Very few people out there are owners. Very few, probably even fewer, are buyers. and it has gotten, one of the biggest responses of any episode we've done. Maybe not in terms of the volume of outreach we've gotten, but in terms of the, lots of follow-ups, lots of people, the people that care a lot. I'll say that. What are some of the episodes you've done that have caused people to just come out of the woodwork the most?
Well, the one that was the hardest amount of work that I think I'm most proud of is I did a 4-part series called From Prison to the Trades. And this was like, I had like 3 to 4 people on each episode who had spent a considerable amount of time in prison, and their journey of where, how they got into the trades from, after being in prison for long periods of time. I mean, one of these guys was in jail for like 15 years. So sort of a Weldon Long kind of story. And the irony is that Weldon Long, I don't know if you know who that is, but he's like the godfather of HVAC sales. He's written a New York Times best-selling book called Consistency Selling, and a couple others. It's all centered around in-home services, in-home sales. And so he was the starter of like EGIA. I've had a good opportunity to be able to spend a little bit of time with him, but what's funny is that like he spent 13 years in prison, and then he got out and he became, the guy is insanely wealthy. I mean, he's done really, really well for himself. So that's probably one that I'm like most proud of.
I was going to say, I love that format. Like we've got to do something like that. I mean, it reminds me of Johnny Cash's Folsom Prison record, like very interesting to reach out to a totally different group and just kind of hear that story. I actually haven't heard that episode, so I'll be sure to check that out. But I'm curious, like prisons feels to me like the classic, well, that didn't work out kind of decision. Like assuming that they are there for a thing they did. Typically, was a mistake. I'm curious, to a lesser extent, we all make mistakes. Was there a moment in your career where you thought, man, this might not work out? Like you're taking things down a direction and you're like, oh shit.
Let me tell you something. If you're going to snip anything, you snip this.
Here we go.
I've told this story before. When I first got into the industry, I had a manager who beat the shit out of me. And I mean, this guy abused me. And
you're talking about physically, or is this
no,
like bullying behavior?
Old school mentality, beat you down, maybe, cut you down, maybe build you back up, maybe not. I was 0 for 11 in my first 11 calls. So I sold $0 in 11 sales calls. And now, mind you, I'm at the bottom of the totem pole, so I'm not really getting great opportunities. But my boss calls me, and this is not too long after that, and he's like laying into me. He's like, you're in the wrong effing business, man. You chose the wrong freaking business, man. You can't do this. I'm just telling you right now, you are in the wrong business. And he's yelling at me. Man, I was pretty panicky. I was very upset. I was very emotional at the time. This is the first year. This is almost 16, 17 years ago. So I go into his office like the next day, and I go, I want to let you know something. I'm here. I'm here to succeed, and I'm here to be successful in this business, and I'm going to be successful in this business. And he was like, okay. Like kind of shoved me off. That year, I got an award for, at the time, man, 17 years ago, man, if you did like $500,000 to $750,000 in business a year back then, that was like, whoa. If you did $1 million, you were like in one of the top, because your average tickets were so much lower than they are now. I think I did 1.2 or 1.3 my first year, and I ended up within a year, I ended up being like over a $2 million sales rep. And this is 15 years ago. The lesson here is, it might seem like you made, like I thought I made a mistake for sure, but then how you turn that around and make it into great success, and now I've made it into an entire career. So,
I mean, this is literally what makes America great. This is what I tell the boo birds all the time, that are down on America or whatever, is, this is the pull yourself up by the bootstraps place where if you just dig your heels in and go, a lot of things are possible. HVAC pros, I got a question for you. Let's do a quick ice cold hot take here in tribute to Everett. So I want to hear from you down in the comments below. Tell me about a time in your career where someone said can't, won't, never will, and you dug your heels in and made it happen. I want to hear your story. Drop it below.
That boss ended up being the most impactful employer of my life. I ended up learning more from him in the 2 years that I spent with him than anybody else. And I've talked to him, and I owed him a debt of gratitude, even though when I was in the shit, it was terrible. And I don't agree, by the way, I don't agree with his style, but it did have a major impact in my life. And I do owe him a debt of gratitude, which is kind of ironic and weird.
It is. I want to unpack that a little bit more because, that's not the direction I thought it sounded like this was a, hey, you SOB, I'm going to rise up and show you. And, before you tell that story, I'll just to see I'm curious what the audience thinks here, but, that seems like a style that is designed to identify the toughest 3% and destroy the other 97%. And kudos to you for being that 3%, dude. Tip of the cap, that's American steel right there. But, I think, I'll say this to the people out there, maybe they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, they're bringing along another generation of pros under them. Man, let me just tell you, we all see it, what you see. Like, this younger generation can be blockheads. There's no question about it. But I will say I've found time and again, you got to give people a path through the shit. If you just come down on them all the time with you're the worst, and there's no build them back up, in boot camp, they tear you down, but they build you back up. They don't just tear you down and throw you in the garbage. And, they tear you down to bring you back up. And if you're tearing somebody down without a plan to build them back up, I can't say that, I can see the logic in that, because
the management style doesn't exist anymore. The guys that employed this 1970s, 80s kind of 90s style, it really doesn't exist anymore. It just doesn't. And but going back to your blockhead thing, man, let me, you got kids, I got kids. They're growing up in a very different time, man. And in information is we had to work to get the information for the most part, right?
Right.
And so they don't have to work for it. It's the mindset is very different. There's nothing slowing that down. And I don't, there's no answer. It's just like we have to adapt because we just have to. They just think about life a little bit differently. I actually think that human connection means less in a lot of cases. Like I feel like I have a very Gen X kind of, even though I'm more probably towards millennial, I have a very more Gen X way of thinking.
Same.
And yeah. And so connection and doing things on referral and making sure there's comfortability level and eyeing somebody up and really looking them in the eye, mano a mano, face to face means a lot to me. And I think two things. One, I think that generation has less of that, but I think that, and actually I have data support this, that I think that the millennial and Gen Z generation is starving for human interaction. Sitting in front of literally a computer screen all day long is not normal for human beings, and they've grown up their entire lives with that. Look at concert tickets, look at live performances, they're sold out. Everybody wants to, when that clock strikes 5 or whatever on Friday, everybody wants to go out and have that, go even I go out here sometimes. A lot of places are packed. And I really think that's due to the fact that there's just not a whole lot of human interaction. And I'm on a full circle listening to the podcast, right? Because I think there's a lot of podcasts that are out there, and they're there because they're selling a product, fine. There's other podcasts that are selling other people's products, fine. There's a lot of educational podcasts, pretty cool. And there's entertainment, right? And my thought process was, I know so many people and we've had so many conversations of things that go on in the trades, but it's not necessarily linked to, hey, what manufacturer should we be using? Or it may not be linked to, hey, what's your latest product that you've got going on there in the back end office of your accounting? But it was more like, hey, man, I met this woman and you got to listen. That's why the one conversation, I ask one question on every single episode. It's the same question I've asked every single person. And it's, what's one customer experience that you've had? And it could be an employee that shaped you, that moved you in some sort of way, that changed you for the rest of your life. And I ask that in every episode. And everybody's got one. Like, everybody's got something that happened to them. And now you look at long form podcasts like what you're doing here, and it's massive. I mean, people want to listen to other people talking all the time now.
You know, it's funny. So you haven't asked me, but I'll just take the opportunity to answer it. This I wouldn't say for me is a single experience as much as a common theme, and maybe this is like useful for some of the younger guys, but it was surprising and counterintuitive to me, and it's the fact that I, over the years, have come to enjoy the most difficult customers the most if they're difficult for a particular reason in a particular way. If their expectations are fair but unwavering and they know their stuff. So they're holding me to a high bar. You know, they're saying, I'm not going to accept less than XYZ. Those are difficult customers to win over and very difficult to lose. Almost like game recognized game kind of a thing. You know what I mean? Like, when you win those people over, you've got a pretty great customer for life. And the flip side of that coin, in terms of customer experience that I would say bad, again, I'm going to give you a theme, not an example of a specific, but these overly friendly, hey, brother, these are the first ones to do something unseemly, I find, just anybody that's that friendly, that fast before they have any reason to, I've just found is like, I'm not a big Jimmy Fallon guy in the late night scene. I don't trust anybody that's that nice right out of the gate. I like somebody with a little bit of edge to them, but I don't know what your take has been, but I've really come to like a customer that has a high bar, holds people to it, holds me to it, whatever the case may be. And, is hard to win, but then repays that on the other hand by, being hard to lose. What's your take?
It's funny you say that. Those are my favorite customers are the ones that have spreadsheets. When you I've had my guys walk into a house, but like, this guy's got I remember back in the day, this guy had like a clipboard with a spreadsheet. He's taking notes. I'm like, you know what? Here's the thing. Because I'm so good, I'm going to win this customer. Because I trained myself to be very good, because I went to those classes, because I took the time to listen to the podcast. I took the time to listen to the audiobooks. So I know now, I know how to deal with those guys. The guys that are afraid of those customers are the guys that can't answer the questions. They don't know how to deal with those customers. So I love those customers. An informed customer where at the end, and he's like, absolutely, I will. And this happened literally recently, where it was like, you know what, Everett, I talked to a whole bunch of people, and man, I got to tell you, the amount of information I got from you was fantastic. It really made sense to me, and so for that, I'm gonna use your company. Well, you know what? All that. Listen, money and the transaction is the byproduct of being awesome. The byproduct of being awesome, not the chase of money itself is not right. The chase of the wind is not going to get you to win. What's going to get you to win is being amazing and then getting there, right? So that's why Nick Saban says, if you focus on the end game, you don't focus on the end game, you focus on the process, right, to get to the end game. Where every single play matters, every single little thing you do matters. And so I teach marginal gains. Have you heard of this concept, marginal gains?
Yeah,
obviously,
sure.
I teach marginal gains. It's one of my biggest things. And I said this on my last podcast, 2 podcasts ago. Let me ask you, Ryan, how long does it take for somebody to make some sort of small judgment about you after they meet you?
Oh, I 5 seconds?
It's less than 1 second. So psychologically, before 1 second, somebody has made some sort of small judgment about you. Do you?
Well,
What do
this
you?
is what I say to the don't judge a book by its cover people. Like, why do you think books have covers? Like, name one publisher out there selling books with no covers. Even the Bible has a cover. You know what I mean? Like, books have covers because first impressions matter, period.
No, well, you can alter, right? Like there's like an under a second judgment just on you look, and then there's like within 7 seconds some other little judgment, I forget what it is, and then within 30 seconds the people that you meet will in some way form some kind of an opinion as to whether or not they're going to use your services, not use your services, trust you, not trust you.
Totally. I'm curious what's your take for newer guys out there, they don't necessarily have to be greenhorns, but for newer guys out there, what advice would you give to a technician, coming into industry when they're stuck? Like I hear this a lot, and we get this as an audience question damn near every episode, but like you're out there, you're tasked with the thing. On the one hand, maybe they've got a senior tech, a journeyman tech that they can call. Maybe they got more than one, but you get this over and over. We hear, I don't want to bother him. I'm calling this guy all the damn time. On the other hand, the expectation is, bro, you're going to sit there and troubleshoot this thing until it's solved, and, yeah, like, they've got some different tricks, but like, what's your advice to these guys?
Best thing you could ever do is use the resources that you have. Hopefully your company invests in some sort of training or tools that you can use. I think your tool's fantastic. I think that would obviously, being in the field, being able to access data immediately. I mean, that's the value there is incredible. So, and that gets you like so far worlds ahead of where everybody else is at, right? And you're making phone calls. It's taking you so much more time to get there. I think, not to plug your product, but it's a fantastic product.
This episode is brought to you by FieldMind, built for the hands that keep America running. FieldMind gives your field service techs ready access to technical documentation, service history, and your team's best tribal knowledge right where they are, in the field. FieldMind is the tool for field service techs. Learn more at fieldmind.com.
Along that, so think about what that is. What is it? It's information. It's solid. It's good information, right? Now you have more of your, like, I don't know, esoteric stuff, right? So it's like, hey, I was at a house and such happened. Like, what would you do in this situation? And, FieldMind's not going to help you with that and these other resources. So what did I do, man? I called people. I talked on the phone. All the time. I did what was called post-call autopsies, because there's the technical issue that you're having, which you can definitely get mentors and people to help you with. And then there's the problem of the person, and the person is a different problem than the technical problem. The technical problem that's happening in the house is, okay, the capacitor, blower motor, fan motor, whatever. The issue with the person might be, they couldn't get there. They weren't going to agree to do the repair. They want to get other estimates. They didn't trust you. They want to get information, whatever that is. Now you've got to figure out, how do I reduce that resistance and how can I be their guy? And so then I would spend so much time, bro. I have a doctorate in this stuff. I would call people that were in the same field. I would get on the phone with them and I'd do post-call autopsies all the time. Like, hey man, I went out to this call. I said this, I did that. They'd be like, well, did you try this? Like, no. I had one guy one of my best friends in the world, and I was stuck for a minute. I don't know. I couldn't even close a door at this point in time. And he was like, hey, man, why don't you just go in there and give them what they want? And I was like, and that was the stupidest thing ever, but I was like, let me just give them what they want. And so what did I do? I gave them what they want. And you know what? They bought what they wanted, and they got what they wanted, and they were happy because they got what they wanted. So but that would be the number one thing I'd say. I'd say, don't be afraid to call your peers, to call other people, to talk to other people, to get information. There's no greater resource than what's already out there. There's just so much you can chat GPT, bro. Where like you're just interacting with yourself. Like, get other people, get emotion involved. We're emotional beings, right? So there's my advice.
This might be, you might say, hey, I just answered this, or maybe you could like give us another nugget here. But if you were going to talk to a 20-year-old that was entering industry and he's saying, I am totally committed to sticking with this for decades. I'm planting my flag here. What's a piece of advice you would give him? But I'm going to give you a caveat, okay? Not your standard, like I tell everyone this is the most valuable thing they can do. What's a thing that's like counterintuitive? It's the opposite of what they might expect, or it's kind of like Everett secret sauce land. Like, yeah, go.
Reinvent yourself. So some people will tell you, and this is going to be really unpopular. Some people will tell you, man, just like stick to the script, stick to the process, do this. This is exactly what you do. You walk in and you say this, and then you go here and you say that. And actually, I think in a way, there's tools now, AI tools that are like recording everything, that are like grading you based upon what you actually say. And sometimes it's not necessarily the words you say to someone that gets them to the transaction. Sometimes it's a look. Sometimes it's a facial expression. There's emotional intelligence involved there. So I would say to somebody like, yes, you need to learn your processes. Absolutely. But then make them yours. And I'd say, reinvent yourself, right? If you find yourself that you see things that are working because you are a little bit more human, you're less robotic. Like a lot of these companies, I don't care, even small companies, right? They teach like very rigorous processes that you follow. And yes, I do believe in processes, but I also believe that you need to tweak those processes and make them yours so that they're authentic, because nothing is worse than an inauthentic experience to a person. Again, I don't care if you're a service tech. Listen, just because you're a service technician doesn't mean you're not going to interact with people. And if you're a service technician and you're working, you never talk to anybody, you're not in houses, you just are on rooftops, then this isn't really for you, right? But for people that are actually going to customer interact in some sort of way, which is the vast majority of residential, HVAC, this is such a powerful thing, and I teach this: being malleable, understanding your customer. And I'll leave you with this. I had a call I ran once, and you have your process. There's certain things you say, everything else you want to make sure you dot your I's and cross your T's. And she just walked outside, and she had I'm a big music guy. She has some 41 T-shirt on, and I saw it, and I was like, there was no process, there was no nothing. She didn't want to replace the unit. I mean, she didn't. She was like, I just had you out here just in case, like in the future, later, at some point in time in the future, later. I'm like, okay, great, cool. Love your T-shirt. Saw them. Actually, they opened for a band I went to go see last year. We just started talking, and it wasn't even like whatever. There was no process. And she's like, well, the unit's around here. It's okay, let's go look at the unit. And we went outside, shooting the breeze, whatever. And I don't think I followed any process at all. I don't think I did. I just made a friend. I just talked to her. We were talking about all sorts of stuff. Went upstairs. Now, there was this one point in time where I was upstairs, and I saw the furnace, and I looked at it, and it was like bad. I mean, it was really bad. It was like mold growing on it. And I didn't say anything, and I just went, I just kind of made a face at her. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's lived a pretty good life. And that was all I said. Lived a pretty good life. It's been there, I told her a little bit about it, educated her. And through the process, there was education in there. But it was very, very loose-goose. And guess what? I walked out of that house. No arguments, no overcoming objections, no nothing. I walked out of the house, and our crew installed it like within a day or two. And she financed everything else. And this was a woman who literally was like, I'm only going to do this later. But she trusted me. She liked me, and I liked her. And it sincerely came across, because I love music. And she's got music stuff all over the house. She's got all sorts of other posters and everything. We spent 20 minutes talking about HVAC, and we spent 2 hours talking about all the other stuff in the house. Don't trip over bags of cash on the way to your process.
I love it. I tell people all the time, learn to take yes for an answer, but that's not quite this situation. I got to say, I really love, what did you say? It lived a good life. I'm curious what the audience, I'd love to hear from the audience when you're trying to politely tell a customer that their shit's dead, like we are end of life here, but you don't want to come across too strong. You don't want to, whatever, but I just would love to hear some of the other euphemisms out there. Everett, if you got a second, I think we got a couple of audience questions we'd love to throw your way.
Hello, my brothers. Jason here out of Tulsa. I am a service tech, and I'm solid on the repair side. But when it comes to talking to homeowners about bigger repairs or replacements, I feel like they think I'm just trying to sell them something. How do you earn their trust in that moment?
Well, first of all, if your mindset is that you're selling them something they don't need, then you are. First and foremost, you have to change your mindset on that. Your mindset should always be, okay, now strip the money away from the situation and just think about this. What you're looking at, if you're looking at an older system, it's not working really well, they've done some repairs into it. If you're having a conversation with them about a replacement unit, that's the right thing to do. Let me tell you what the wrong thing to do is to charge them for a repair, middle of summer, unit goes out. Then they're like, well, why did you do the repair and why didn't you ask me about a replacement unit? And so I've seen this go badly a million times. So giving information is not unethical. Talking about replacements is not unethical. There's nothing unethical about that. In fact, it's unethical not to give them that information. The better thing for you to do is lay out all the options. Now, either you have that as a responsibility at your company, or you have a rep that will come out and do the measurements and give them, do replacement options. But don't ever think that because you're giving somebody more information. I would pose it like this. I'll give you a little practical application. I would say, make sure they know, hey, listen, I can absolutely do the repair for you. I can get that prepared for you. While we're, kind of figuring this out, I'm gonna go ahead and get my guy out here, and then you can make a decision as to what is the best thing for you. But at least let's look at all the options, because if I replace this now or I repair this now and it breaks or whatever the case may be, you're not gonna be really happy. At the end of the day, we can do either. So I think if you're breezy and easy like that, you'll never feel like you're being unethical at all. You're giving them options and you're letting them decide. And if they say no, I've never had anybody after any of my service techs have said that. I've never had anybody go, "You're just trying to sell me a new unit." No, it never happens, because information should be available to these people. So think about it more from an educational standpoint and less from a sales standpoint.
I love it, and it comes across. I mean, I've been the buyer plenty of times on that side of things. I just took my my car in the other day, and you can tell when someone's trying to walk you through options and come around to your side of the table. I mean, it definitely shines through. But I'm curious. One last question for you before we run out of time. As you look back on your career, what is something recently that's caused you to look back and say, "Man, this is why I do what I do"?
What a great question. I was working with this small company, and, for them, X amount of dollars per year is like a good year, and or a good month or a good week, right? I don't want to give exact numbers, but anyways, smaller company.
Yeah, sure.
And I was able to help them, and they were so appreciative of. We brought in a lot of business in a short amount of time, and showing their guys, like, this is how I do it, this is how I communicate, and training them, and watching this happen live, and watching the light bulbs go off. It's one of the most rewarding things in the world. And then for those guys to step into houses and to have these incredible results and then get 5-star reviews at the end, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm doing all this work, I've sold more than I've ever sold, and I'm getting 5-star reviews across the board. How is this possible? How is it possible? And so that's very rewarding for me. And it's very rewarding, especially in a smaller company environment, because the impact is so great, right? To go from 30 to 50% closing percentage, or to go from, an average ticket of, $100 to $300, it does make a difference. So I love that. And I love seeing that happen with good people, small business owners. It's like the real salt of the earth people. And then, for them to go, man, I really appreciate everything you've done. It's really rewarding.
Man, I love that story. Everett, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Appreciate you, man.
And thank you for listening. Join us next time as we meet with another frontline tradesman out there keeping America running. Thanks for listening to The Dispatch. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with a friend in the field.